Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show, Gary's here, and we've got a catch up. So we've not chatted for a while, so we'll be talking about what's new at CES, some of my updates, including my e-ink display, which I got working for the mixer. Gary's got some smart home news and lots more. So let's get straight to Gary. Gary, good evening, and I should say Happy New Year actually, because the first time we spoke this year. Yeah. You're allowed to say it. I don't think you can say it beyond.
I think you're allowed to say if it's the first time you meet someone in the year, you can still say it.
Oh, so you could say it to someone in December.
Yeah, if you haven't seen them beforehand, I think that's technically the rule.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
Okay, well, I will quote you on that, and I'll use that in defence later in court.
Gary said that's fine.
Okay, so I thought we'd do a quick update show tonight. You're on your phone, so it's not your normal audio, but it sounded quite good. So there's a few things I wanted to update on. And I know you've got some stuff you wanted to update on as well. And CES is going on actually, but I've not heard a huge amount coming out there. I've seen Lenovo had some interesting laptops with pull-out sides and things like that, but I've not heard a huge amount.
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing from my point of view is the first actual commercialization of a solid-state battery in a vehicle, albeit a motorcycle. But that's quite interesting.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah. So I'll tell you, catch up with some of the things I've been on. So a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned about my Raspberry Pi that I had the idea of using the e-ink display to label my mixer, and I'm pleased to say I got it working. So there is the e-ink display with all the channels and the thing listed on there. I should have done it that way, I think, but anyway, it's working. It works that way. So, and it's dead straightforward. This is an inky fat 2.13 inch e-paper display, which you just plug on top of your onto your Raspberry Pi like that, program it in Python, which is pretty straightforward. There's some sample code. I just tweak that and put my text in. So my labels are there now for the mixer, and I just leave it here on top of my mixer. So if I repatch something, just get out the Raspberry Pi, replug it, and it works. So I was really pleased we've got that working. I've got a couple of other ideas to do. I've got a 16 by 16 color LED display, that dot one. I think I've shown it on the show before. I managed to get it to plug in a MIDI interface into the Raspberry Pi, and it could read that. So I made it like a little visual display of. So as you press the keys, and the harder you press the keys, the higher the voltage goes. A little graph.
Like that. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, I did that one, and the other one I did was if you want to visualize the envelope, which is the sound envelope of a DX7 or a complex synth. So most modern synths and old synths tend to use ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, release. The DX7 had 6 parameters, I think, 6 or 8 parameters, decay, rate 2, and sometimes to visualize in your mind is a bit tricky. So what I actually did is you type those into the Python program, and then on the 16-bit thing, it displays the visual representation. So I had to go at doing that, but if I put that together with the MIDI, I could actually receive the SysX from the DX7 and display the envelopes on there. So I could do something like that, but good fun. So I quite enjoyed doing that. So I'm glad to say I got it working. So I've now got 2. I had no Raspberry Pis working. I've now got 2 Raspberry Pis working now. But yeah, I'm really pleased with my little thing. It's so simple. But you wouldn't believe, like even tonight, I was just tweaking the volume on one of the synths. I think, which ports it plug in? Because they're all identical on there. So that shows me. So there you go. So there's my Raspberry Pi update, which we talked about. I'm glad I got that one working. And I've been working on some other stuff, of course, and I've got some new sound pack out this week as well. So this is a Wavefolder sound pack. So if you've ever come across the West Coast style of wave folding to bring some interesting effects, I've got that on there as well. So I've also got a couple of tutorial videos. I've got one on the new Opsix, which I've just got. So I've released my first video on that, and I've got quite some more to come on that as well. And talking of videos as well, one other thing I recorded over Christmas and released last week was an interview with John Lehmkuhl, sound designer for Korg and the creator of Unify, the brilliant plugin. But he worked on many Korg synths back from the M1. He did the factory presets on many classic Korg synths, including the Karma, which is behind me there. And we had a great chat about how he got that job and what it entailed. And he had some nice pictures as well of of his time at Korg. So check out that one. It was a really interesting show. A lot of
That's really good. I listened to that in the car at the weekend. That was really good listen.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy and really interesting sort of story. So yeah, I did enjoy that. So so that's the update from me. Lots of tutorials and sound pack as well. Oh, and the synth quiz, which I did over Christmas as well. But I think we talked about that last time. The answers, I perhaps didn't give the answers last time we were on, but yeah, the answers are up there as well. So, what have you been working over the last couple of weeks? I know you've got some smart home stuff you've been playing with.
Yeah, smart home stuff. I've been doing a bit of AI stuff. Actually, this will be done by the time this goes out, but I'm about to head off tomorrow. So that's Wednesday. Obviously, this obviously comes out on the Thursday. I'm off to Birmingham to do a talk at the Birmingham.net user group. And what I'm actually going to be doing there is a code dojo where people are actually going to write their own MCP, which I don't know if you know what that actually is, but it's a model context protocol. It's a horrible name, but it's basically how AI talks to things to make things happen. Right. So if you imagine go to do your job, a problem, come and go out with his wrench, an electrician will go out with a screwdriver. So to AI to do anything has to actually have a way of communicating with the real world. So I've been playing around with this thing. So maybe remember this is a little Sphero 2 pushing away. And I'm trying to. I'm having issues pairing it to Windows 11 at the moment, but I've got it paired on a Windows 10 device, and it's working really well there. And I can actually control that from the chat, the Copilot chat. So I can say, Copilot chat, move the Sphero, and the Sphero moves, because what it's doing is it's talking to this model MCP server, which I've written. Model context protocol server, which I've written, which is actually communicating over the COM port to the Sphero. And what's interesting is I've only exposed 2 commands from that. I've exposed move forward, rotate, and I'm able to give the AI really complex commands, which I haven't told it anything about, and it works out how to use those 2 commands to actually do it.
Oh, so it only can activate on the 2 commands, but it knows it can work in its head in the code how to move things around just using those 2.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, the code doesn't need to do it. The code knows nothing about what the AI is going to do with it. It just responds to commands. So it's like an API effectively, application programming interface. So it's just a certain code. So yeah, just send it messages and away it goes. But it works really well, and it's so simple to implement as well, which I'm going to prove tomorrow, because I've only got 2.5 hours for this meeting, and in that time, I'm hoping most of the delegates will actually write their own MCP server and be able to use it. So it's really simple to do in .NET. I mean, MCP is a little bit of an interesting protocol. It's obviously, to my mind, it's quite hacky. It's probably not really enterprise ready. So there's some other things coming along which will probably make it more secure. And but you can use OAuth with it, and you can use other security of mine. This is totally exposed. If you're on my local network, you could get to it and control it. But yeah, it works really well. So yeah, it's quite nice to be able to do something like that. And it really, I mean, this is how my home automation works now, because virtually everything is controlled through my large language model that I've got, or I say small language model, I've got running locally. So, and that has an MCP server it talks to actually control the home assistant side of things. So it's really quite clever how all this stuff hangs together nowadays. But from a business point of view, it's really, really cool. I mean, you must be sort of seeing some of this stuff in your world, but it's things like you can talk to the documentation you've got, you can talk.
Yes.
Expose MCP, the servers, and then the AI can just pull things into them in a secure way. So it's quite nice. It's quite nice. That one of the things I always liked about these, you see it's flashing, and it's flashing basically white, blue, yellow.
Yeah.
That's actually the name of the device on Bluetooth. It's Sphero WBY.
Right. So if you had another one with a different name with a different sequence of colours for the identifier,
you can tell what it is, which I think that's really clever. If only I could get the COM port to actually connect in Windows 11. It works fine in Windows 10, but in Windows 11 it doesn't want to connect. So I don't know why that is.
Yeah, I'm seeing. I mean, a lot of different use cases for AI engine and stuff like that. I'm working on one with it. She's an invoice reading one, so it can read invoices and spit them out in XML with a. All you have to do is point it to a folder and point it to a schema, and it and so I've done quite a few like that.
So files and folders are something which is sort of kind of built into all the LLM agents, but this is sort of expanding that to the tools you want it to do. So that's quite fun. It's quite fun playing with that. And I'm looking at whether I can integrate other things into that, and I've got some skills and things. I mean, one of the interesting bits of automation I did, and I think I mentioned this just before Christmas, but obviously we've had a big extension built, and we've got some new ensuite bathrooms, and they've got extractor fans in them, and I didn't really want those to be on the switch timer because they run too long and it's very noisy. But I do want them to actually extract if the humidity gets so high, and I've actually done that using a sensor, actually not choosing similar to this one, which we'll talk about in a minute, which senses humidity very accurately and is very responsive, and that now is controlling a switch. So the switch for the fan is controlled by this sensor. So if it gets humid in the shower room, that fan goes on until the humidity goes down. So it often only runs for a few seconds because that's all it needs to run for.
Yeah,
running all the time, and you keep the dampness out of the room, which is why you have to have extractor fans in bathrooms, and it just works, and it's really effective. So I think there's I mean, obviously, you can actually buy fans which work like this now, the extractor fans which have the humidity sensors built in, but they cost an absolute fortune. They're like £3 or £4 for a fan. Whereas this is the actual sensor I'm using is, I think, 30 pence to buy one. I mean, it's on an ESP chip. It's on my own little ESP chip. But yeah, it's the actual sensor is really easy to use and very accurate. But I equally could have used, and I did. Initially start using this sensor. So this is one of the other things we were looking at just before, the Zigbee sensor, and this works really well and very long battery life on it. The only reason I'm not using this is because there wasn't really anywhere to put it in the bathroom. It sort of, there wasn't a shelf or anything I could sit it on. So what I've now done is I've taken what this was doing and converted it into a little ESP chip based device. So that would be that the ESP chip is Wi-Fi. And that means I can embed the ESP chip. It's so small I can put it inside the fan casing, so it all sits nicely in there. But it's all very interesting stuff.
But I guess when you integrate that, how are you finding then the getting all these different standards and protocols into your smart home?
Well, the good thing is, as I've mentioned before, I'm now using Home Assistant as a sort of an abstraction layer on top of all my other. So I've got so many different because I'm testing smart home stuff all the time. I've got different manufacturers' smart homes, and not all of them will talk together properly. But Home Assistant usually allows you to amalgamate them. Sometimes with a few bits of vagaries and things suddenly stop working, which have been working quite often. But because they're all a lot of the plugins for Home Assistant are non-official, so if the manufacturer changes something, usually an update there happens. There's a lag before the plugins get sorted out, but it works quite well, and that works well, and it pulls together most environments. The one I've had a lot of problem with is Matter, so Matter over Wi-Fi is pretty good. But I mentioned those motion sensor devices or human sensor devices, which are people Christmas, which I love, and they work really, really well because the battery. They're the only ones I know which do Wave, which are battery based, which actually work, and they work really, really well. The batteries look at this one. So I installed this end of November, and the battery's down to 98%. So that's constantly being turned on and off because it's in the kitchen. So we're constantly walking in and out of the kitchen. It's constantly triggering, and then the battery's 98%. And that's two little AA batteries. So it's quite chunky because it's got AA batteries in it, but it's quite good. And that's working on Matter over Thread. And people don't know, Thread is the standard that was invented by Google for the Nest devices. Well, it wasn't invented by Google; it was invented by Nest, but Google.
Yeah, who were bought by Google. Yeah.
But Nest invented the Thread protocol, and then Google sort of expanded it a bit and started using it for other things. And and it's now one of the protocols you can use in to connect to Matter. The only problem is I've got several devices which are thread network ready. Network aware. I've got Eero Wi-Fi. That acts as a thread, what's called a thread border router. I've got Amazon Echo devices, Alexa devices, which are thread border. I've got SmartThings devices, which are also potentially thread border devices. And it's impossible at the moment to merge them into one network. So I've got loads of different networks. I mean, the Amazon devices in the Eero should automatically merge. They don't seem to do that very well. I did see a trick online, which I'm going to try and see if that works, which is by basically resetting the Amazon devices so that they or resetting the passwords for thread stored in the Amazon devices so the credentials, not actually passwords. And the problem is that there are currently, I think it's up to 1.4, but there's about 14 versions of thread out there, and all the major only SmartThings seem to have actually gone to the final, the most current version. Home Assistant has on their implementation, which means it's very difficult to share networks. It's incredibly difficult to join one device to another network. It's almost impossible to delete a device from a network once you get it onto a network. The management of this stuff is just really cool, to be honest. When it works, it works really well. But there are a few glitches with Thread at the moment, and occasionally the devices go offline. And the only way to get them back online is basically to rejoin them to Thread, basically reset them up. And that's a pain. It's a right pain to do that.
Yeah, because you've got your routines and everything. It takes them out, doesn't it, and everything? Yeah.
It does. Well, one of the good things about Home Assistant, it actually recognises it's the same device, and will re-add it to the routine, which is good. So you don't have to do all that in most cases. Occasionally, it does take off. I've had that happen about 3 or 4 times. Now, this can actually, what does seem to be the case is if you've got multiple thread border routers around, then you get these problems. If you only have one thread border router, you don't tend to have the issue. But the thread network is quite short range, I find, more shorter range than Zigbee. So you need some way of getting that mesh in place. And the thread border router it does seem to work okay if you've got multiple thread border routers for a while, but then it dies off. So this thing basically is a mess. It's not a very good. It's supposed to be a standard which makes it easier for people to add home devices in the home without having to think about it. It's a right mess. It really is. And I think only Apple, Google, and Samsung got this almost right. And Apple and Google are fairly well. Google's pretty close on to things in terms of adoption of the latest standards, but yeah, it's not easy, and certainly not easy with Amazon devices. They seem to be really tricky to deal with. Even their own devices are not talking to each other properly. I mean, if I look at my current thread networks in Home Assistant, I see 4 Eero networks. you think it's one Wi-Fi network. Why is it giving me those 4 thread networks? So yeah, not the best experience. I think I'll be sticking to Zigbee for a little while. A Matter over Wi-Fi has improved a lot, and it's now very usable. Which brings me to the device I just waved in front of me. So this is we spoke about these last time I was on. These are Sonoff's new AirGuard sensors. So this is AirGuard CO2, and this is AirGuard PM 2.5. Now I can't actually work out why you would have 2 separate devices for this. I guess they can't get the sensors of both of them. You kind of want one device which does CO2 and PM 2.5. And also, why CO2? I mean, the most interesting stuff to detect around the home is probably is carbon monoxide. That's the one which poisons you and kills.
Yeah, CO2 is just telling you your carbon emissions, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's good. I mean, this is working. I mean, you can see it's if I hold it up right, it's got the humidity. I don't doubt you can see that very well, to be honest, on this camera, but 55 humidity, 19 degrees, and 734 parts per million of CO2. I don't know if that's good or bad, but yeah. If you actually run it in the EWE link, EWE link app, which is Sonoff's own app, it does use some advice of what the readings been. If you run it in Matter, it doesn't do that. What was really interesting, when I added this to Matter, it actually came in as a switch, but without any switch controls. It just said it was a Matter switch and then gave me the sensors. So you can see all the sensors in Home Assistant and in other applications. So yeah, mains powered. So obviously, it's a slightly annoying green light on the top, which is on constantly. I haven't worked out how to turn that off in the Matter. I can turn it off in the UE Link application. But yeah, it's solid. It works well, and it does seem to be very accurate. I've checked the temperature, and I didn't need to. Usually with these devices, you have to tweak them quite a bit initially to get the temperature settings right. But this was spot on immediately. So yeah, it's a good little device. And I'd say there's two in series. This is the 2.5 one. Works exactly the same way. Looks identical, but obviously in this case it's the M2.5 particles it's showing you. When I ran that one up, it showed quite a high density of PM2.5 particles in my house, which is not surprising since we had the builders in there plastering.
Right. Yeah.
It's probably plastered us, I suspect.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, quite interesting. Interesting little displays on that. Yeah, to get all that data. Yeah, and then I suppose you can trigger alerts and things like that.
All your normal sensors from there. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Now, I know CES is going on this week, and it came up. It comes up on your OneDrive with pictures of where you were X amount of years ago, and quite a few of my CES pictures came up with us at CES, 2008, 2009. We were there 2007 as well, weren't we? I think.
Yeah, we were, yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't been more than, I think 2012 was the last time. 2012 was the last time I was there. I've seen a few things, but it's certainly not got the same, all the big announcements like they used to have there. I think the only thing I've seen is a few Acer and Lenovo press releases. I think Lenovo had a few different laptop form factors out, which look quite interesting. I think their ones do some sort of experimental form factors, which looks quite nice, which I quite like. But has anything on the EV news come from CS? Because it's kind of EV, a lot of it's EV now.
Yeah, there's a lot of tech being announced and sort of new EV being announced. The one interesting thing was an announcement around solid state batteries. So I'm going to see if I can actually find the details of this. But so we've talked about solid state battery on the it's been sort of like solid state batteries of the future and have been for a long time. It's like they never seem to actually arrive. But what's interesting that there is a motorcycle company in the States which has announced that they are launching in Q1 this year a new motorcycle which will be powered by a solid state battery. So now this is not. I mean, it's great because this is the first commercial proper use in a vehicle of a solid state battery. But it's interesting that their density is not as strong as high as we were predicting. So this is from a company called Donut Labs. Is the actual battery? So it's going to be used in a Verge TS Pro electric motorcycle. So there are a lot of real advantages to this. So it can be fully charged in 5 minutes. Which is pretty good. I mean, this is obviously a motorcycle, so we're not talking a very high capacity battery here, but it's still pretty big. It's 400 watt hours per kilogram. Now that's pretty good. That's double the density of a Tesla battery, for example. So in the same space, you could have twice the capacity. That's not the levels we were talking about with solid state initially. I mean, sort of 10 times, 20 times has been mentioned as a sort of 1,000 kilowatt hours per kilowatt, or so kilowatt hours per kilogram have been talked about, but this is 0.4 kilowatt hours per kilogram. But it's still a good step forward. But the key thing is, obviously, the key thing as well is it can rapid charge in 5 minutes. It's designed to last 100,000 charge cycles, which is quite a long time. But the key thing is it's safe. There's no risk of thermal runaway. There's got no flammable liquids in it.
Right.
And it's also temperature safe as well. So this is one of the Achilles heels of most batteries technologies. It's actually an Achilles heels of gasoline motors as well, because they get affected by temperature. But there's no, well, there's a tiny bit of change. So the solid state battery, this particular solid state battery, they reckon that anywhere between minus 30 and 100 degrees, the variance will be less than 1% of the capacity.
Well, that's probably okay.
Yeah. The great thing is it's basically able to be designed in almost any shape. So you could actually build it as part of the bodywork of the vehicle. I mean, it looks like a fairly conventional battery in the way they've done it here, but they could make it in any shape basically. And so you could have the door panels of your car made out of it potentially, because it's safe. It's not going to burst into flames if it gets an impact. So you can use it in structural areas. So the Verge CSPO is going to be, as announced, has been announced that it will be out in the first quarter of 2026 in the States, of course. Without doubt, we'll see it over here. But the fact it's production ready is huge, and it's the first time we've actually seen we've seen sort of hybrid solid state, sort of semi-solid state as they call it, which isn't really a major step forward. But this is the first proper solid state battery being used. Now the great thing about this is 400 watt-hours per kilogram is actually brilliant for things like phones. If you can imagine that sort of density on a phone, I mean, you don't need a huge amount of power to power a phone. I mean, we think we do, but in terms of if you're going to be doubling the battery life of a phone easily, and having very rapid charging.
Yeah.
If the size of a battery you put in a phone, if you charged it at normal household charging, you're probably talking 10, 15 minutes to charge your phone, which is pretty good.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And then sort of 2 or 3 days battery life. But the thing I think is going to be really interesting in this is wearables. Imagine a watch. Now you could make the whole case of a watch out of this material potentially. Make it with just a sort of a big shell at the top of it, and you could potentially have, in the size of a watch, if you made the whole shell of the watch out of it, then you're effectively doubling what size you have currently for batteries. The batteries are really tiny in watches. Now we all know that the wearable watches battery life is terrible. I mean, you're lucky if they intensely use, they're lucky to last a day.
Yeah,
whereas
exactly, yeah.
something like this, you could potentially have a battery which lasts a year in a watch. And even if it didn't last a year, you could just drop it on a wireless charger and have it charged in 15 minutes maximum. So it's going to make differences. I know I've said this actually on a couple of our predictions shows. I've always talked about solid state batteries as being I think I'm really looking forward to coming into fruition. It's really nice to see this actually happening. So yeah, don't solid state battery. Want to see it actually out there, because there's been a lot of promises in the past, but this really does look like it's actually going to happen. So yeah, let's go.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I look forward to seeing when those devices hit. The other show actually is the NAMM, the music show in California. I think next week. So I'm looking to see if we get anything interesting for me to save up for. I don't think I've got any space for anything else in here at the moment, but yeah, I always can make space somehow. But yeah, usually get some new synths. And usually Behringer announce the last couple of years they've announced some stuff. So yeah, we'll look to see what that is on there for next week's show. I think
actually, what we're still talking about shows at CES, there were a few interesting bits of smart home technology coming out. First, obviously, IKEA, however you want to pronounce them, have announced their new range of smart home devices. They're all Matter over Thread. Well, maybe some Wi-Fi Matter, but there's a lot of stuff in there. The Aqara have come up with a new thermostat, which looks really interesting, because it's got a presence sensor built in. So we talked about presence sensors, and actually having a presence sensor built into your thermostat is a really clever way of working. I've done this, so I think may have mentioned this on the show before, but I can't. I've got a room in the new build which we made a mistake. We didn't put any heating in it. Which is sort of like a total oversight, but it's the utility room. We didn't used to have a heater in our utility room because we had the boiler in there, which was heating the room. We haven't got a boiler in there now, so there's no heat coming into it. So as part of that we ended up with a problem on heat. So what I've done is I've got a little thermal panel, and this is really great. I mean, it's like the picture I've got behind me, which is a far infrared heater. This is actually a roll up far infrared heater. And it comes up. Oh, it's really not. It's got a picture on it, so it just hangs on the wall. It looks like one of those wall things you used to get in 70s homes, but it's got a power lead coming off the bottom, and that warms up, and it's like standing in the sun basically. So this is the same, but this one really warms up, and it's so low voltage. I mean, I think it runs about 320 watts, which is just crazy, and it's good enough to warm that room. And what I've got done with that is I've got one of these MIDI wave sensors, one of the battery powered ones, just in that room, which tells it as someone approaches that room, it turns on. And by the time they've got in the room, it's hot enough to keep you warm. And then when they go out the room, it shuts down again. And it's got some sort of like it's got freezing protection and all that sort of stuff in there. It's like it'll come on if it gets too cold, but it's basically not on much of the time. And we've been running this now since before Christmas, so 4 weeks I think it's been running. And I worked out the cost of running it yesterday. It has cost 23p to run it.
Oh, that's not bad.
Because the time it's been on and off. And that's warming that whole room. And it's just really, but it's that intelligence which you can get when you've got the right sensors in place. And I love the fact that the car thermostat has actually got that built into it, because it makes it so much neater. You don't have to have multiple devices to do the job, and you can do all the automation on the thing. The other thing which I think is really clever, and this is very, very niche for if you happen to have, and we've spoken about this before, this is the Philips Hue system called Spatial Aware. So this is like the idea that using some variations in the communication which they use between the Zigbee communication they use between the Philips Hue devices, they can work out if someone's in the room.
Right.
So and then there's that's not spatial. That's the sensor awareness. They've also got a thing called spatial awareness, which allows you to use your smartphone camera and LiDAR sensor to identify where your hue lights are in your room.
Wow, that is really good. Yeah.
Mapping your lights to the other on your Christmas tree lights. This is basically a similar thing to do that. So you can then spread scenes across multiple lights. So you have to have a Humidity Pro to do this. And it will be available in spring 2026. I think States first, but probably wider than that. So you could then do they were showing this idea of a sunset scene where the sunset's spread across the room, across the lights. It was
that's nice.
Really clever to do that. The other one which I really quite like is the Roborock Saros rover, and I have actually seen this before. But it's really clever. It climbs stairs. It's a robot vacuum cleaner that climbs stairs.
Oh, well, that's handy. That's what you need, isn't it? Yeah.
And it cleans them as well. It does it slowly, but it's it works. And back to Akara again. The other one which I really liked, and this is very niche, another multi-millimeter wave sensor, presence sensor. But this is the multi-sensor FP400, which actually can track up to 10 individual people in a room and tell you where they are. Now, that's not going to be useful for most homes, but for offices, there's some definite things for that. It's Matter compatible, and it can also track if you're standing, sitting, or lying down. So you've got options about. You can imagine this actually for people in an office building. They're sitting on desks, and you can turn the lights on the desks automatically, turn them off automatically, save money, of course. It's definitely got some interesting possibilities. Although you could also see some Big Brother watching us possibilities there as well. So there's some interesting stuff coming on. as usual with CES, there's loads of robots there.
Yeah.
Lots of humanoid robots. Some really creepy humanoid robots this year. But I did see that humanoid robots are actually going into the market, into the workplace now. I think it's Samsung have announced they're starting to use them on their production lines, which is interesting.
Yeah. Which we see him going zip around the home, hoovering up, going up and down the stairs, and everything else.
Yeah. So that's definitely interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I always kind of miss being there when I'm there, but then you remember all the hassle and everything I was getting there, and the cost of it got so ridiculous.
Yeah, it was a ridiculous price. And literally getting into the country now is such a difficult challenge.
Yeah. So we'll leave the others to that, and we will see their coverage. Right, so I think that's just about everything we've got time for our update this week. So we'll see what happens at the music event next week. So Microsoft might announce the MIDI stack. I know they announced it last year, but development, so they might announce when it's actually going into Windows. So that we'll see for that next week. So where can people find you to keep up with your going on?
Gary WMA on all the social medias. That's Gary 2Rs. Also, you can find me on my YouTube channels. So I've got the Fascinating Tech channel, which actually did have something posted on it, all about the new update to the. Actually, I can't get into it. Let's see if I can turn that round. It's probably not. Just turn the camera off. Hang on, 1 second. 1 second, caller. So you can, obviously the NS Panel Pro. This is now running Home Assistant natively, so it's running it as an app. That was a bit fun. That's set up. So that's using the F-Droid store. There's some really some quirky bits on it. It doesn't actually. If it restarts, you have to go back to the F-Droid store to reopen it. You can't. There's no way to sort of put it on the launcher. But it's definitely way more reliable and running as a web application used to be, and it's way better performance. So yeah, that's working really well. So I did some videos on that. If people watch that on the Fascinating Tech channel, and on the EV channel, I'm about to start ramping up the content on that again. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. Actually, that's one thing. I very briefly, I did get to test drive the Kia PV5. I haven't got any video of that because I had some technical difficulties today, but that was interesting. That feels like a very futuristic van. It's really interesting that shape and technology on there, and what was really impressed me on that was the information system, infotainment system. It's Google. It's Google Automotive, but with a few additions on it. But it had loads of really interesting applications for fleet control. But I could see them being quite useful for home control as well, like home tracking stuff and things. So I think that's it's nice to see open standards embraced. I wish more manufacturers would do that, because I think that gives a lot more flexibility to things. So I understand that sort of the Apple's equivalent that hasn't been as adapted by manufacturers. And interestingly, in the States, people are now moving away from giving you Android Auto and Apple CarPlay access on cars. I don't know if that's going to start moving this way as well, but a lot of the big American manufacturers are saying, no, we're not going to do that. You have to use our systems. This is so. There you go. That's where you can find me.
Excellent stuff. Well, you can find me on the digitalifestyle.com. All links are on there. A new song out today called Synthetic Skies. It's a synthwave track, just using the multipoly and the Selena and string ensemble. So you'll find that on there. I made a video for it as well, so it's on the YouTube channel, but it's also on Spotify and all the usual places. So check that out. In fact, I'll play out with the song as well. So we'll be back next week. I think we've got a guest next week, so we'll find out then. So until then, we'll see you next week.
Take care.